There's no denying the fact that the center of the overall Star Wars franchise, when it dwindles down to some of the characters, are of course Anakin and Luke. And if you're going by Legends, of course, you got characters like Anakin, Luke, and Ben Skywalker, and how that really tells a whole new tale. Now, we have Bob Iger at the helm as the new Disney CEO, calling the shots on expanding the roadmap, picking up where Chapek left off, because Chapek wanted to bring the Skywalker Saga back into the theaters, in the, of course, cinemas, on the big screen again, and that's exactly what Iger is about to fulfill. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all for the great and kind support. Now, one thing about John, George, and Dave, and yes, they are working together as a trio, still to this very day, to really bring balance to the Star Wars franchise between the divided fans. Now, the thing about George, John, and Dave is that they are already creating a lot of Legends material, getting put into the official canon, and really reviving all of those fan-favorite stories from the 1990s, the early 2000s. You gotta remember that Legends stopped in 2013, a whole year after Disney bought out Lucasfilm. They got one extra year of Legends content. I think the last book was Star Wars Crucible. Check it out. It's one of the best books out there that really shows you the iterations of old Han, Luke, and Leia. Now, of course, given that Bob Iger, like I said before, is picking up where Chapek left off to continue the Skywalker Saga with episodes 10 through 12, this is where things begin to get very interesting for the fans, and of course for the creators involved. So, on top of this, with Bob Iger focusing on Star Wars movies again for the fans to bring Star Wars back to the cinemas, they also have both Favreau and Filoni involved in the early development phase for multiple Star Wars trilogies in the works. All Disney board members are said to be very excited to kickstart Star Wars episodes 10 through 12, that they want to begin production by 2026. Now, this is the more distant trilogy in the works, and is going to continue the Skywalker Saga by focusing on the story of Cade Skywalker and the grandson of Luke. Now, let me just pause here. Given that Favreau and Filoni are about to make Luke's son canon, this would make sense why there would be a grandson in these upcoming films. Moving on. Now, Favreau, Filoni, and Lucas are said to be involved in the development of the book versions first, that will be released sometime in 2025, labeled 10 through 12, before the films arrive and actually have already been created at that point in time. Now, John and Dave already created notes for the upcoming films, many of which are set to focus on the return of Luke's Force Ghost, an older version of Rey, and a surprise cameo of Ben Solo in a new and unexpected way for the return also of Anakin's Force Ghost to be used on film finally. The format of the new trilogy is said to be a mixture of all three past trilogies with this new one, and the story of Skywalker cousins, Cade Skywalker and his younger sister Jaina, that is inspired by Jaina Solo, and the descendant of Luke's son. This is said to be Disney's Hail Mary, and last attempt at ending the Skywalker Saga forever on film, and their last-ditch effort to make it a groundbreaking trilogy for the fans. Let me just pause here quick. Now, we've been talking about this for a very long time, and it is something that is in the early development phase, much like how years upon years ago, James Cameron was working on all the Avatar films, creating all these different notes, creating all these different brainstorming ideas for his upcoming slate of Avatar films. You guys may recall, way back in like 2012, he was even writing up notes for Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's kind of like the same scenario, almost, where we are with Favreau, Filoni, and Lucas, and other creators that will be involved, with these upcoming new episodic films to be the final, last episodic films by Disney. And this is basically going to be their final, line in the sand that this is the end of the Skywalker Saga on film for good. They want to stop it at episode 12, and that's it. Almost like it's a roundabout way of the clock. Now, when you look at everything like this too, I like the dynamic that they're aiming for. how they want to focus on it being a story of Skywalker cousins. You know, basically showing us one that's more wise and one that's more conflicted. The more conflicted one being Cade Skywalker, since they do want to keep it accurate as much as possible in these upcoming films, judging by the notes that John and Dave have been putting together, to make Cade a mixture of Boba Fett, Luke, and of course, let's not forget about Han Solo. He's a mixture of all three of those big characters into one. He's a bounty hunter, he's a smuggler, he's a Jedi, but he's also, of course, a thief. And they throw a lot of that into one major character, and that's what I like about Cade. He's like the living embodiment of Boba Fett characteristics, Luke characteristics, as well as Han and others. So that brings us to the next scenario. Exactly what's going on. Now, like, of course, how James Cameron created hundreds of notes for his Avatar films, Favreau and Filoni, like I said before, are doing the same already for the new trilogy movies, episodes 10 through 12. Now, this is exactly what George wanted, by the way. He always wanted to stop things at an episode 12. He never got to really write the treatments of those movies, but he always wanted to stop things at an episode 12. Kind of like how, you know, every single hour around the clock goes from 1 to 12. That's kind of like what he viewed it as, it going full circle. And I like that little analogy. Now, the thing about this too is that this is going to take a long time. Again, like I said before, they don't plan on beginning production for this until 2026. We're talking about filming, by the way, and let alone maybe even just a script. But as of right now, it's all about notes, it's all about storyboards, it's all about concept art. That's where they are at right now for these new films, brainstorming, really getting things out there. But what they are set on is putting the books out that are going to be made canon by 2025, that the movies will be based on lightly, or some form, give or take. So basically, we're going to have books called episodes 10 through 12 on store shelves sometime by 2025, and then that's what they're going to base the films on to an extent, not beat for beat, but to an extent. That's their basic marketing plan, to not only get the hardcore fans very familiar with all these new characters like Cade and the new iteration of Jaina, and really including the grandson of Luke into the story and the equation, and how that's going to be later portrayed on film years later. So again, the 2020s are going to be a very interesting decade. They also have a Mandalorian trilogy in the works, which basically, like I said, is a new sequel trilogy. It's going to be basically a lot of elements from Heir to the Empire. And then we also have an Old Republic trilogy in the works. Apart from all of that, it's all one-off movies, all solo films, one of which being the David Lindelof movie, and another of which that's falling apart, by the way, is the Taika Waititi movie that's not looking too hot right now. So, anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.